Moses. We're talking about F's that look or S's that look like F's. Unfair test, but it didn't make any difference because you're going to flunk it anyway. This is at that same theater, the colored entrance. I'm a big believer in irony. First of all, when I taught U.S. history for 37 years, I always felt the best way to teach history was to be able to tell good stories. So I always looked at history as being his story. And I love irony. The kids always joke about it. They call my class Papa John's story time. But you look at this picture, it's so ironic. White drinking fountain, refrigerated, nice, clean, refrigerated. Colored drinking fountain, definitely not refrigerated. But look where the water source is. Water's coming from the same place, for God's sakes. Separate? Well, they're always separate. Anything under Jim Crow, under segregatory laws, they're always separate, but they're almost never equal. Wasn't just blacks either. We served whites only, no Spanish or Mexicans. Now you're going to see that sign more or less out west. Just like on the map, where you saw some of those states where segregation was in some areas but not in others. The segregation there was mostly Hispanic and Native American. Beale Street, love that place. You ever get a chance to go to Memphis, Tennessee, hit Beale Street. Don't eat before you go, because they have the best barbecue in the world and the best blues bars. So you can eat and drink to your little heart's content on Beale Street. This Hotel Clark is on Beale Street. Still there. That sign is not there anymore. The sign is in the lobby. You can still see it. But yet, no, where you can go, where you can stay. So very literally, and again, I like irony, very literally at this point in time, if you were black, you were separated from the white race. And this picture just shows it so clearly. Beautiful playground. The black kids can't get in there to play. They're fenced out. Right?
There was a voice during this period that was heard by millions of people. And it was the voice of Woody Guthrie. And this picture right here, I thought evoked this song. Okay? And you listen and see if it fits. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me the endless skyway. I saw below me the golden valley. This land was made and me. Now, most of you heard this song, but here's some verses you might not have heard. Okay? As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and on that sign it said no trespassing. But on the other side of that sign it didn't say nothing. That's the side of the sign, you and me. It swears up the city in the shadow of the steeple. By the relief of it, I see my people as they stood hungry. I stood there asking, this land really made for you and me. Nobody living can ever stop me from walking that freedom highway. Nobody living can make me turn back. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California I land. All right, man.
Okay, so how are you going to get past, the precedent that had been established by Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896? How are you going to get past it? We're talking about the 1950s now. How are you going to get beyond it? It's going to have to take somebody with a whole lot of courage. There are a series of court cases across the country that were fighting against segregation in schools. And this is Chief Justice Earl Warren. And when we think about Supreme Court appointees today, if you've got a conservative president, what person gets appointed to the Supreme Court? Conservative generally, yeah. And same Democrat. The appointees to the Supreme Court, lifetime appointment, serve at they're forever. And they're generally reflecting the point of view of the guy who appointed them. And this ain't necessarily the case here. Chief Justice Earl Warren had no real background as a judge, but he had a reputation of being an honest, conservative-minded, being an honest, fair person. Governor of California. He's appointed to be the Supreme Court Chief Justice by Dwight D. Eisenhower. Eisenhower is a conservative Republican. He had been one of the big heroes of World War II. And both parties, Democratic and Republican, tried to get him to run. And he chose the Republican Party and ran as a Republican. So you would assume that Chief Justice Earl Warren is going to kind of maybe not follow the conservative viewpoint, but at least he's going to kind of reflect on something. Now, he believed in the quote that's on the right side of, or left side of this picture, equal justice under the law. That's what it says over the Supreme Court entrance when you go in there. Equal justice under the law, regardless of who you are. That's the idea. Now, he's hearing a series of cases. Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka is the most famous one. But there are 7 others. The court case is called Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka et al. And others. And he wants to strike down segregation in the realm of education. He believes that segregation, in his decision, he writes that segregation has no place in the realm of education in this country. That's what he wants to get past. He wants it to be a unanimous decision. All 9 judges had to vote in favor of it. That's going to be a tough sell. 3 of the judges are from southern states. One of them in his youth had been a Klansman. So, it's going to be a tough sell. And yet he does it. It's really amazing. Court bans segregation in public school cases. That's the decision of Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka. The ruling is unanimous. The case is directly involved only 5 states, but 17 others may be affected. Where are those 17 others? Mostly Deep South. Now, being a history geek, I like looking at other headlines too. Frank Costello, head of the mob, 5-year prison term. French cancel air evacuation in Indochina in a place called Dien Bien Phu, which is going to lead to the United States being involved in Vietnam from 1956 on until 73.
There was a song by a group called the Broadside Singers, and it came out in the era when the civil rights conflicts and the segregation legislature, things like that were going on. And it sounds like this. They say freedom is a constant struggle. They say freedom is a constant struggle. They say freedom is a constant struggle. Oh Lord, we struggled so long, we must be free. We must be free. They say freedom is a constant sorrow. They say freedom is a constant sorrow. They say freedom is a constant sorrow. Oh Lord, we struggle, we must be free, we must be free. This was known as a zipper song. And a zipper song was, it's a repetitive song that you zip a different word in and it becomes a new line. So they say freedom is a constant seeking. They say freedom is a long, long journey. They say freedom is a dying. Oh Lord, we must be free. We must be free.
Now these are going to be all events that you heard about when you were taking your history class when you were in school, or you lived for and saw happen around you. '56, young lady named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the Montgomery bus line. She was coming home from her job as a seamstress, and she refused to give up her seat to a white guy. And she got put off the bus, got fined, I think it was $500. She was the not field secretary, she was the secretary for the local chapter of the NAACP. And they wanted to do something about this. There's a new minister in town, young guy, named Dr. Martin Luther King. And he starts the Montgomery bus boycott. And people from across the country are sending station wagons and other vehicles down to churches in Montgomery so they can ferry these people to and from work, because most of them didn't have cars. Montgomery bus line refused to integrate. The strike held up for 13 months. Now, the blacks made up 75% of all the market on the bus line. Wow. Figure out math, gang. If you lose 75% of your market, what's going to happen to your company? So eventually they bellied up, convinced the White Citizens Council that was in charge of the government. When I say White Citizens Council, you can read KKK. And the boycott ends, and the buses are integrated. Dr. King's first big action. 57, Little Rock Central High School. 9 kids get enrolled at the high school, 9 black kids. The school was entirely white. They had to be, first, they went in a station wagon operated by the Army. One of the girls didn't make the bus, didn't make the station wagon, and she had to walk through that mile. And I'm sure you guys have probably seen video pictures of that occurrence. These kids were incredibly brave, incredibly brave. Eventually, Eisenhower governor of Arkansas wasn't going to protect the kids, he sent in the 101st Airborne. So these kids went to and from school in Army station wagons with the Jeep in front and the Jeep behind, locked and loaded with 50 caliber machine guns. And 101st Airborne troopers who aren't in the best of mood being dispatched this way were guaranteeing that the kids can get into school. And each kid had a trooper appointed to them to protect them going to and from every class. So you got this guy in your classroom with a M1 Garand rifle and a bayonet, not sheathed, on his shoulder. Now eventually, Little Rock Central High School was integrated, but most of the kids, most of the white kids dropped out, and they started a new program in schools called charter schools in these southern states, or parochial schools. 1960, Greensboro, North Carolina, sit-in. Some black kids from a local college went to a lunch counter at Woolworth, and they sat down. They said, "We can't serve you here." They said, "It's quite all right. We're just going to sit here." Next day there were 7. Next day there were 14. Next day there were like 50. And pretty soon the number got into the hundreds, and it was white and black kids from local colleges who would sit in and occupy all the seats at the lunch counter. They took a tremendous amount of crap. You know, people getting milkshakes and dumping them on their heads and trying to start fights. It was terrible. And the strike went nationwide. And people all around the country started boycotting over lunch counters. My first civil rights action, I'm not black, but my best friend was. And our first civil rights action was in 1961 in Detroit at Woolworth's, at the lunch counter. 1961, Freedom Riders. My sister Marge and Janelle both wanted to go on the Freedom Riders. And the Freedom Riders were going to ride buses from Washington, D.C. to New Orleans. And they were going to stop at all these different trains or bus stations and check to make sure whether or not the Interstate Commerce Commission law was being enforced. Bobby Kennedy had passed this ICC regulation saying that all ICC, Interstate Commerce Commission, modes of transportation had to have integrated facilities. He was able to do that because he was Attorney General. He was able to do it with the Interstate Commerce Commission because the Interstate Commerce Commission had the right to regulate interstate trade. These people just got whooped. Everywhere they stopped, Jackson, Mississippi, taken out of the bus and beat. Representative Lewis, John Lewis, was one of those beat. The one who just died, the name just totally left my head. Ooh. Thank you. Was another one. And whites and blacks. One of the buses was firebombed in Alabama. And the only reason that everybody didn't die, because the first guy on the bus was an Alabama state trooper. And he pulled his gun and he said, "I'll shoot the first one of you, blank, blank, blank." They come near the bus. And the Klans people all just kind of disappeared.
Here's a song you may have heard as they boarded that bus. Odetta made it popular in that period. And it's about a couple of folks going to jail. All the time that's around jail, had no money to go their bed. Keep your eyes on that prize for long. Keep your eyes on that prize for long. Paul and Silas began to shout. Jail doors open and they walked out. Keep your eyes on stayed in the wilderness so too long. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Ain't but one chain we can stand, that's the chain of hand in hand. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on that prize, hold on. Freedom's name is mighty sweet, black and white are gonna meet. Keep your eyes on that prize, hold on. We have fought jail violence too, and God's love has seen us through. Keep your eyes on that prize, hold on. Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on that prize, hold on. Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on that prize, hold on.
Bobby and John Kennedy had wanted to pass a whole bunch of civil rights stuff. Problem is, John gets shot and killed. But Lyndon Johnson, whatever you might think about him for a lot of things, he was a butthead and he was also a hero. I mean, it was a combination. But he got more done on the civil rights the year after John was killed than John and Bobby had been able to do. And a lot of it was a kind of a knee-jerk reaction to our slain president's legacy, but an awful lot of it was because LBJ was a hell of a politician and he knew where all the skeletons were. So in '64, the Freedom Summer, a bunch of white and black kids, members of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and CORE, the Congress on Racial Equality, went south to try to encourage people to test the Civil Rights. Civil Rights Act was passed. The Civil Rights Act guarantees all the guarantees that have been made 100 years earlier in the 14th Amendment. You know, it's not doing anything new. It's just giving them the guarantees that have been already guaranteed to them. Okay, you can pass it up in Washington. Come down here and enforce it. 65, the Voting Rights Act is passed, giving blacks the right to vote, men and women, regardless of your background, as long as you're born or naturalized in the United States, you could vote. Same laws that were essentially that had been passed 100 years earlier. Now we get to the Green Book. And the Green Book is called the Green Book because that's the author of it, Victor Green. Victor Green was a postman in Hoboken, New Jersey, and New York. And he knew that there were a lot of places in New York where you just couldn't travel if you were black. You had nowhere to get gas, where you could go to the bathroom. You had to know all that stuff. And so he started putting together a little pamphlet that told you where you could go and where you could stay. Pretty soon, friends of his from around the country, other postmen, started sending in editions. Eventually, the Green Book covered all of the United States and Canada, and for some strange reason, the Bahamas. And it was a really cheap little book. I think, the initial book was 25 cents. This is a 1940 edition. Like I said, it tells you where you can go, where you can stay, all these things. Prepared in cooperation with the United States Travel Bureau. Victor Green is the publisher. He's a postman. How the heck is he going to be able to afford to pay for publishing this? Another part of the story. He had this in his first edition and also the last edition. There will be a day sometime in the near future when this guy will not have to be published. Then we can go as we please and without embarrassment. He's going to publish it from 36 to 65. 64, I'm sorry. Once the Civil Rights Act is passed, he is already dead. They figured that their goals had been achieved. We have a copy of the Green Book on display at our Green Book exhibit in the museum right down the hallway that way. And it's a copy, it's not the original. If you can find an original, Library of Congress just bought one for $25,000, a copy of this paperback. So if you could find one, it'd be worth having.
Check your attics.
So how can we afford to do it? You know, I'm not, either one of us are big believers in alternative facts. It's either true or it's BS. And we can't find anything particularly to back this up except for this one quote. This guy with the kind of pinched face, very famous, very rich, John D. Rockefeller, richest man in the world, founder of Standard Oil Company, controlled 95% of all oil refineries in the United States, scads of money. This is his wife. And he said about her judgment was always better than mine. Speaking of his wife, philanthropist in her own right, Laura Spelman Rockefeller. Name sound familiar at all? You ever heard of Spelman College? Historically black college and university. Her father founded it. And gentlemen, we all know that our wives have a real big influence on us. And if you don't believe that's true, you're probably not married. Okay, not mistaken. In a very subtle, quiet way. I mean, she's the one who influenced him to do this. Now, I'm not saying that Rockefeller's a sweetheart. He bankrupted his own brother. I mean, he's not a nice guy. You would not call him a progressive by any means necessary. But he decided to fund the publishing of the Green Book. Two reasons. One, he thought it was a good idea, and his wife thought it was a better idea. The other one is he can make a hell of a lot of money off of it, which is not entirely altruistic. So he's the first industrialist in this country to offer franchises to blacks. Well, if you're a black man, you're traveling anywhere in the country, and you're going to have to buy gas. Where are you going to get your gas from? Esso, Standard Oil. So gas stations are opening up, owned by blacks. And you knew that you could go to any Esso gas station and get gas without receiving a whole lot of crap about it. Because if you did receive crap about it and reported it, Rockefeller yanked the franchise. So he's going to make a lot of money out of it. He's going to have black-owned franchises. The second industrialism to offer black franchises to Pepsi-Cola. I have no idea how I figured that out. Presented with compliments of the Esso men, the Esso building, carry your Green Book with you. You may need it. And if you're black and you're traveling, you did. If you've seen the movie, it doesn't talk about it a lot, but you can see that Tony the Lip, refers to it quite often when they're trying to figure out where they can go and where they can stay. Now, we're not sure whether or not it's this one or this one, but one of them is the first black-owned Esso franchises in the country. Again, irony. Green Book, look at the pictures.